The road ended long before my map said it would. I remember because the GPS lost signal at the same moment the last streetlight disappeared behind me. After that, there was only dirt, trees, and a thin line of fog hanging low across the ground. I was already hours away from the nearest town, and my fuel was running lower than I liked, so turning back didn't feel like a better option. I kept driving slowly, tires crunching over gravel, hoping the road would reconnect with the highway. That's when I saw the house. It stood alone beyond a crooked wooden fence, half hidden by vines and tall jungle trees. No other buildings, no power lines, no lights. Just a single two-story structure sitting in the dark like it had grown there. My headlights washed across the front walls, and for a second I thought I saw movement in one of the upper windows. But it was gone as soon as I blinked. I told myself someone probably lived there. Maybe a caretaker, maybe a farmer. I needed directions and a place to rest for a few hours. The air outside was strangely warm and heavy, and the forest behind me was already too dark to safely keep driving. So I parked near the gate and shut off the engine. The silence hit immediately. No cars, no distant traffic, not even insects. Just a deep quiet that made my ears ring. I grabbed my flashlight and phone and walked toward the front door. The wooden boards under my feet creaked with every step, loud enough to make me feel like I was announcing my presence. The front door was slightly open. I knocked anyway. No answer. I pushed the door gently and it swung inward with a slow scraping sound. Dust filled the beam of my flashlight. The place smelled old, like wet wood and something metallic underneath it. Furniture sat inside, but it looked untouched for years. A table, 2 chairs, a broken cabinet against the wall. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed farther than it should have. The house seemed bigger on the inside than it appeared outside. I waited for footsteps, a reply, anything. Nothing came back. I should have left right then, but exhaustion makes decisions for you. I figured I would sit inside for a while and leave before sunrise. I shut the door behind me and leaned my backpack against the wall. That was when I heard the first sound, a soft knock, not from the door, from somewhere deeper in the house. 3 slow taps, then silence again. I stood still, listening. I thought maybe wood contracting, or an animal trapped in the walls. Old houses make noises. I told myself that and walked toward the hallway. The beam of my flashlight shook slightly because my hands wouldn't stay steady. The hallway stretched farther than expected, ending at a staircase leading to the second floor. The knocking came again, clearer this time. Above me, someone was upstairs. "Hey," I called. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need directions." No reply. Just another 3 knocks, directly above my head. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step groaned under my weight. Halfway up, I felt a cold draft brush past my face, moving downward like someone had just walked past me in the opposite direction. I turned around immediately, but there was nobody on the stairs behind me. At the top, I found a narrow corridor with closed doors on both sides. My flashlight flickered once. Then again, I smacked it lightly and the beam steadied. The knocking came from the last door at the end of the hall. It was slightly open. I approached it carefully. The air felt colder near that door than anywhere else in the house. I could see darkness inside, deeper than the rest of the hallway. I pushed the door wider and shined my light in. The room was empty, bare floor, cracked walls, a single window with broken glass letting in moonlight, nothing else. The knocking stopped completely. I waited there for a long moment, listening to my own breathing. Then, behind me, directly from the hallway floor, knock, knock, knock. I spun around. The corridor was empty. The sound came again, but this time I realized it wasn't coming from a wall or a door. It was coming from below the floorboards. Slow, deliberate taps, as if something underneath the house knew exactly where I was standing. I backed away from the spot. The knocking followed, moving across the floor beneath my feet, stopping when I stopped. I could feel faint vibrations through my shoes. I hurried down the stairs. The knocking moved with me, now coming from inside the staircase, then from the wall beside the front door. I grabbed the handle, ready to leave, but before I opened it I heard something else. Breathing, right behind me. Not loud, not aggressive, just a steady inhale and exhale close to my ear, warm enough to feel on my neck. I froze. I couldn't turn around. Every instinct told me if I looked, I would see it. Then the knocking came again. This time directly on the other side of the door, from outside. 3 slow taps. I opened the door instantly and stepped out into the night air. The yard was empty. My car sat where I left it. The jungle stood still, no wind moving the trees. But the knocking continued, now from inside the house behind me. I didn't go back in. I got into my car and started the engine. As I drove away, I looked once in the rearview mirror. The upstairs window had a shape standing in it. I couldn't make out a face, only a tall outline watching the road where I was leaving. And just before the house disappeared into the darkness, my car radio, which had no signal all night, suddenly filled with soft static, followed by 3 clear knocks coming through the speakers. I slammed my hand against the radio and the sound stopped. The silence inside the car felt even worse than the noise. I kept driving, faster now, barely watching the road ahead because I couldn't stop looking at the rearview mirror. The trees closed in behind me, and the house vanished into darkness, but the feeling that something had followed me did not. A few minutes later, the engine temperature light flickered. Then the headlights dimmed for half a second before returning to normal. I told myself the road was rough and the wiring was loose. I just needed to reach the highway again. The radio crackled. I hadn't turned it back on. Soft static rose from the speakers, low and uneven, like distant wind moving through a tunnel. I reached to shut it off, but the knob was already in the off position. The sound grew clearer. Knock, knock. I pulled the car to a stop. The knocking wasn't loud. It sounded close, contained, like someone gently tapping on a hollow surface. Not outside the car, inside it. I held my breath and listened carefully. The sound came from behind me, from the trunk. I stayed frozen, hands gripping the steering wheel. My mind searched for explanations. Maybe something had fallen into the trunk earlier. Maybe tools shifting with the bumps. I stepped out slowly, not taking my eyes off the car, and walked to the back. The jungle was completely silent again. I unlocked the trunk, but didn't open it immediately. I listened first. Nothing. No movement. No knocking. Just the faint ticking of the cooling engine. I lifted the lid, empty. No boxes moved. No loose parts. Nothing that could have made that sound. I stared at it for a long moment before closing it again. As soon as the latch clicked shut, the radio inside the car hissed loudly. I jumped and opened the driver's door. Static filled the cabin. Then, buried under it, I heard a voice, not clear enough to understand words, but it sounded like someone whispering directly into a microphone from far away. The sound faded in and out, struggling to form speech. I leaned closer to the speaker. For a second the static cleared and I heard a single word spoken softly, right against my ear through the radio. Inside. I stepped back immediately. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I looked around the trees. Nothing moved. I got back in and started the car again without thinking. The moment the engine turned over, 3 knocks came from the roof of the car, directly above my head. I drove. I didn't care where the road went anymore, as long as it moved away from that place. The dirt road eventually connected to asphalt, and a broken sign confirmed I was heading toward a highway town about 20 miles ahead. The farther I went, the lighter the sky became, a thin gray line forming at the horizon. The radio stayed silent the rest of the drive. I reached a small gas station just before dawn. The building lights were on and a man stood near the pumps drinking coffee. I parked and got out, trying to act normal, trying to convince myself the night was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. While filling the tank, I noticed the man staring at the side of my car. He didn't look curious. He looked confused. "You come from the forest road?" he asked. I nodded. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed at my passenger side door. There were marks in the dust. 3 sets. Long vertical scratches ran down the metal, thin and deep like something sharp had dragged along the car while I was driving. They were fresh, clean lines through the dirt, perfectly parallel. I didn't remember hearing anything scrape the car. I forced a laugh and said branches must have hit it. He shook his head slowly but said nothing else. I paid and got back into the driver's seat. Before I closed the door, I checked the back seat. Empty. I started the engine and the dashboard lights came on normally. For a moment everything felt ordinary again. Morning birds were chirping. A truck passed on the highway. Sunlight was beginning to touch the road. Then I noticed something in the rearview mirror. The back seat headrest was slightly pressed inward, as if someone unseen was leaning forward from behind it. I stared at it, not moving. The leather slowly returned to its original shape, releasing pressure that I never saw applied. The radio turned on by itself. No static this time, no whispering. Just 3 calm knocks from the speakers, soft and patient, as if whatever had followed me was no longer trying to get inside, because it already was.